Moving on to Spartanburg, that's where an 18-year-old faces additional sexual conduct with minor charges. Zyron Strobel, this is who you see right here, was arrested back in March, accused of 13 offenses involving sexual abuse with children. After his arrest, a lead investigator believed there were more victims who hadn't come forward yet. Strobel now faces 16 additional sexual conduct with minor charges after investigators say 4 additional victims have since come forward, and they're ranging at ages from 5 to 15. Investigators said their allegations were corroborated both by the examination of digital evidence as well as credible disclosures at the Children's Advocacy Center. He faces 29 charges total. The 16 additional warrants that were served to Strobel were 6 counts of exploitation of a minor, 5 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor, 3rd degree, 3 counts of promoting the prostitution of a minor, and 1 count of criminal sexual conduct with a minor in 1st degree, 1 count of disseminating, procuring, or promoting obscenity.